Hey everybody, welcome to Teen Life Group. This is our second installment of our study from Proverbs chapter 18. The title of our study is called Don't Be a Fool. And we're working our way through the Proverbs in this chapter. And so I'm going to go ahead and just dive straight in. We studied verse 1 last time, and we're going to look at verse 2 today. I did say last week that I was going to draw some conclusions and some connections between the two verses. We'll do that at the end today, and because these two verses, they do kind of they almost do work together, just in the way that some things are worded, and so it's just some of the same thoughts that are represented. And so you guys can go ahead and turn to Proverbs chapter 18, verse number 2. Let's open in prayer, and then we will jump into it. Dear God, we thank you for today. We are thankful that again, we were able to have church today, and I pray that you would I pray that you would allow things to continue to go in motion so that we can continue to get back into a normal routine of a schedule at church and just in people's lives in general. Pray that you be with us as we look into your word today, that we can gain some things from it, and that you would show us some practical ways to live. And so we're thankful, and we are glad that we have your word and that you've shown us how to live. Give us, again, a good study, and we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so Proverbs chapter number 18, verse number 1. You've probably seen the title of our lesson for today is All That in a Bag of Chips. And so some people out there know what that phrase means, and there may be a larger group of people that have never heard that phrase before. This is a phrase that we used to use back in the 90s. That meant that if you were all that in a bag of chips, that meant that you were something special. You were wonderful. You were, top of the top. You were awesome. Usually, though, if someone thought they were all that in a bag of chips, they're probably the only one that thought that. Okay? So if you thought that about yourself, it's not a good thing. But if someone told you that you were all that in a bag of chips, that was high praise. It was a great compliment to be said that. So I don't think I've heard teenagers say that in recent years, and but it's an old but good phrase, and so maybe you guys should work that back into your slang, if you will, your vernacular. So all that in a bag of chips today. You'll see where that title fits in a little bit later as we work down through this. But let's start by reading our first two verses. Again, verse 1 was last week. Proverbs 18:1 says, "He who separates himself seeks his own desire. He quarrels against all sound wisdom. A fool does not delight in understanding, but only in revealing his own mind." Okay, so again, we've talked about verse number 1 last week. So we're going to move right into verse number 2. And just as we're going to always start right here is uncovering the meaning. I want to make sure we understand the pictures that Solomon gives us, and that we understand the words that he's using. And so let's look at this. There's really two phrases here. Okay, uncovering the meaning. Let's look at this first phrase. A fool does not delight in understanding. This word, a lot of these words, they don't quite mean the same thing. It's hard to translate some of these words from Hebrew into English, and so our English translators have done a good job, but it's tough. There is a picture here. This word delight, it means to bend or to bow down, to curve. Okay, and so that's kind of the image there, is that something is curved or bent towards something. It bows towards it, and it curves towards it. And it really is to be, when it's used of people this way, it's talking about not being curved, to understanding, but it's talking about being inclined to understanding. And, I kind of think about a plant. You guys have probably seen or studied a little bit about this, but you check this picture out. Look at this plant. Okay, this is called a little plant maze. You can build these. You see the plant at the bottom, and it is in the dark, and there's that little hole over to the right, and you see how the plant kind of works its way around and up through the hole, and even up to the top hole where the light source is. And, plants, they grow toward the sun. They are inclined to find the light and to grow towards it. And, you look this up, you can see all kind of images of plants doing some really cool things. And you can even, do this yourself. You want to set something up like this. And it's really kind of cool. But this, I think this is a great picture to show us what this word means. This word means to curve and to bend and to be inclined towards something. So that plant is inclined to go toward the sun, to go toward the light. And it curves and bends its way there. And so that is the image that Solomon gives us. And so if you look at it, a fool is not inclined to understanding. He is not bent toward understanding. He's not inclined to it. And so we need to talk about the word understanding next. This is more than just your typical normal word for understanding. It is a little bit different of a word. It means intelligence, the act of understanding something. It's more than just to know something. Which is more of the traditional way we understand that word. And intelligence, by the way, do you guys know what the word intelligence means? I put it up here for you. It means the ability to acquire and apply knowledge. Okay, so the ability to learn things and to apply those things is intelligence. At least that's what the dictionary says. But there is a little different facet of this that I think fits into this proverb. Okay, so it's not just that a fool is not inclined towards learning things, even though that is included in the meaning of this. But this idea of understanding is also an understanding one's own deficiency. Okay, you guys know what deficiency means, right? It means a lacking. It means a shortcoming. And a person who is intelligent understands how to acquire and apply knowledge, and they know when they have deficiencies themselves, and they know how to meet those things. Okay, so this is someone who understands their own deficiency, and they realize how to meet that deficiency. Okay, let me give you a couple of examples of this. Okay, if you look at this picture on the screen here, this is a picture of my freezer in my house. And this was a couple years ago, and you can see that it is completely frozen over in there. That's the back of it. Had to take all the shelves out, had to take all the food out. And the back is completely frozen over. It's not thawing out. And that is a problem, because when you have that problem, you can't refrigerate and freeze your food. All right, the cooling process is hindered. So I'm looking at my freezer, and I have no knowledge of how refrigeration works. Zero. So I had to gain some knowledge. I had to acquire some knowledge, and I found that knowledge on YouTube. All right, you guys may have heard. I go to YouTube and try to figure out how to fix some stuff. But I was looking at my freezer, and I see all these wires and just all this different, just stuff connected. I was like, "There's no way. I'm gonna have to call somebody to fix this, or I'm gonna have to go buy a new refrigerator, and I don't want to do all that in freezer." And I get on YouTube and I start trying to acquire some knowledge about refrigeration. And then, lo and behold, this picture was taken after I fixed it. You see the little glowing lamp down there? That is the problem. It was the problem, I should say. That lamp heats up, and it causes that ice buildup to melt off. It defrosts it. That lamp was burnt out. And so once I figured out the problem, I was able to order a part. It came, I put it in, it started working, no problem at all. And then with a little help from my main man Caleb there, he helped me finish defrosting it kind of quick style, and we were able to get it working again. That was about 2 years ago. Freezer still works just fine. All right, so there was a deficiency in my knowledge. I did not know how to fix the problem. Okay, I had to gain some knowledge and then put that into practice. And so the example there is that you understand your deficiency and you understand how to meet that. In this situation, I needed to acquire some knowledge to make up for my lack of knowledge. But it's not just knowledge, okay, that this refers to. Some people hear intelligence and they think, "Oh, I'm not smart, and I don't make good grades, and I struggle." That's not entirely what this is about. Okay, this goes well beyond just knowing things. Okay, another good example of this. A couple weeks ago, we were going to seed the church lawn with some some grass seed, and I had to put some attachments onto a tractor attachment for Brother Rodney Johnson to use, and I had to put this attachment on the bottom of this an aerator type of thing, but this thing is super heavy. Okay, I cannot get up under it to work and put these little attachments on there. And so I call Mr. Rodney up. I was like, man, I need some help over here. Give me some advice, help me out. And the deficiency was my knowledge in that situation as well, but the deficiency was also in my strength. Okay, I didn't have the strength to turn that thing over. So Mr. Rodney comes over, he looks at it, and he realizes that we don't have the strength to turn that thing over. And he makes a very wise decision, and he gets a little piece of metal and he props it up on one side, and I'm able to work on it, let it down, and again we could do the other side. He props it up with something, and then I'm able to do that side. And so we didn't have to pick it up and move it at all. We just used a little bit of leverage and got it. And so he had experience in how to handle the situation. It's not just making good grades, book knowledge types of things. It is some skill and experience in knowing how to live and do things and figure things out, and realizing that, hey, I've got a deficiency in my physical strength, so I'm going to do something different to meet that deficiency. I'm going to lever this up, and I'm very thankful for his help, by the way. Otherwise, I'd still be working on that thing. But a fool does not delight in understanding. He's not inclined or bent towards even understanding his own deficiency. He thinks that he's got everything figured out. Okay, look at the next phrase. Next phrase says, but only in revealing his own mind. Okay, so he does not incline to intelligence into understanding his own deficiencies and shortcomings, but rather his delight is in revealing his own mind and what he thinks he already knows. And this is the problem of the fool. Okay, he thinks he's all that in a bag of chips. All right, he thinks he knows best, and he is not inclined or bent toward listening to sound wisdom, which was in verse 1, or just conventional wisdom that other people know, other people. And he is not interested in hearing others. He's interested in revealing what he thinks he knows, and he does not know. He doesn't know anything. He is a fool in this verse. So he's not interested. He's not delighted. He's not inclined to learning how to live life better, whether that's from acquiring knowledge or some wisdom or skill. He is Mr. Know-it-all, and that's a very dangerous thing and a very dangerous place to live. And so we need to talk about a couple words here, revealing. But he does not delight in understanding, but only in revealing his own mind. The word mind there is the word heart in Hebrew, lave. And so this is much the way we would use the word heart in English. Okay, it is and you guys have heard people say this before. I've said it several times, but it's the center of a person's desires, thoughts, and motives. Okay, so if I love you with all my heart, that doesn't mean I love you with this beating organ in my chest. It means I love you with all of who I am. All of Chad Morris loves you. Okay, my inner person, my thoughts, my ideas, my motives, all those things. So this person is only interested in revealing his own mind, his own heart. And so the word reveal, we'll go on down to that. These are pretty easy. I'll move through them. The word reveal, it means reveal, okay? But it means to uncover or to expose something, to lay something out bare for everything to be seen. So if a fool is doing this, there's nothing in his mind that he does not want to uncover. He wants to speak his mind. The problem with the fool is his mind is foolish, and he's not speaking wisdom. He's speaking foolishness, and partly because he only listens to himself. If you look back at verse 1, what does he do? He separates himself, and he doesn't, I don't want to misquote it here, he quarrels against all sound wisdom, okay? And so he's got a big problem. So he only wants to reveal his own mind. And before we move on, I do want to talk about one quick little phrase here, the very first couple words, but only. So I know I'm kind of working backwards in this phrase, but this is important. We don't want to skip over this. The words but only show us his real desire. Okay, so you can figure this out. Look at it. A fool does not delight in understanding, but only in revealing his own mind. So his delight, his inclination is not in understanding, but his delight is only in revealing his own mind. So it's not in understanding, but rather in revealing his own mind. Okay, he has, and I got this quote from a commentator, Peter Stevenson, that I read. The fool here has no concern with the ideas of others. His own faults are all important to him. He doesn't care what other people have to say. He doesn't care what wise people have to say. He is Mr. Know-it-all. His own ideas are right. He doesn't need anybody else, and that is his problem. That's why he's a fool. Okay, he separates himself, he quarrels against sound wisdom, and he's only interested in revealing his own mind, not in listening to other people, and gaining that insight, that understanding about how to make up for his deficiencies and his shortcomings. Okay, so I mean that's really the verse. Yeah, it's really easy. But now then, I've got 3 more points for you for you guys to think about. Okay. I'm not going to ask you questions really today. I'm just going to make the points, but let's look at these. These are, guys, super simple. Okay, it does not get much simpler to this, but it's so important for us to learn how to live life this way because we do not want to be a fool, right? Don't be a fool is the message of really chapter 18. If you had to outline it, but the first one is this. You ain't all that. And I realize ain't is not a word, but every time my English teacher would tell me that ain't is not a word, I would say, but don't you know what I mean when I use the word ain't? And they would say yes. And I would say, well, that makes it a word. But they didn't like that too much. So you ain't all that. Okay, I was going to put you aren't all that, but it didn't sound as cool to me. You ain't all that. You are not all that in a bag of chips. Okay, you have got to understand that. And that's the problem of the fool. Okay, the fool does not delight in understanding. Remember, he's not inclined toward intelligence and understanding that, hey, he does have shortcomings. And that's kind of the point here. You have weaknesses and deficiencies. The sooner that you realize that, the better position you are to live life wisely and humbly. Okay, the funny thing about a fool is they don't realize how weak and deficient they are and how unwise they are. And yet they're super arrogant and prideful. That is the problem. You would think a wise person would be the one to be prideful because they're wise. They're living the right way. But a wise person is humble. And again, this is what Christianity is. Okay, I read a quote. I should have put it in here, but I didn't really, and I didn't. It just kind of came to my mind. But I read somewhere that it says that humility is the deep root from which all other virtues grow. And I thought that was so cool. If you're going to be a virtuous Christian and have good characteristics, you've got to be rooted in humility. Pride has no place in the Christian faith. And the fool is full of it. And so we've got to be careful that's not part of our life. So we got to realize that we're not all that. Okay. I had a professor in college, Dr. Bruce McAllister. He used to and he spoke to the preacher boys, the ministerial students, and he used to tell us that, men, you're going to have weaknesses in your life. I mean, we all have them. He says, but you need to recognize what those are, and you need to shore those things up. Okay, you need to brace those weaknesses up so that they don't collapse on you. Okay, and so they're not as noticeable. Okay, you can have weak spots in a building, but if they're propped up well, then there's no damage or no danger in the building. It's held up. And so but in order to shore up weaknesses, you've got to realize what those are. And that's what that's where he messes up. He's not inclined. His delight is not in understanding. He does not recognize his own deficiencies. When you do that, when you understand and you gain knowledge about yourself and about life and you apply those things and you're inclined to an understanding, that understanding should breed humility. What we talked about this a second ago. You would think a knowledgeable person would be prideful, but that's not the way it should be. The more a person is wise and has understanding, the more humble that they should be. So understanding should breed humility. I got a couple quotes here that I want to give to you. A couple guys y'all have probably heard. First guy by the name of Albert Einstein. Okay, I don't know what comes to your mind when you hear Albert Einstein, but probably genius. Okay, smart guy, right? What did he say? He says a true genius admits that he or she knows nothing. A true genius admits that he or she knows nothing. The fool doesn't do this. Okay, he wants to reveal his own mind and show how much he knows. Problem is, he doesn't know anything. Another guy you may have heard of, his name's Socrates. Another pretty smart guy, right? Philosopher. What did he say? The only true wisdom is in knowing that you know nothing. Now, does that mean you actually are like stupid and don't know anything? No, but it's like the more that you know, the more that you understand about life and even about yourself, the more you realize and see how much there is out there that you do not know. And that's what a person, I mean, and these are two pretty smart guys, right? And their conclusion was the more you know, the more you should realize that you don't know anything compared to everything out there to be known. I think Einstein also said we know 1,000th of 1% of what there is to know. He was just convinced that there's so much knowledge out there that we haven't even scratched the surface. And when you think about how wise God is, you think about how much knowledge he possesses, you think about how much of that we don't know. So we need to be very humble, and we don't need to think that we got it all figured out. Okay, so we need to be inclined to understanding. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I'm well on my way. Number 2 here. Once you realize you're not all that, then you need to listen to others. Okay, you need to learn to listen to other people. And again, you know, the more that, just me personally, when I think about these things, there are times in my life where I see these things pop up all the time. And, you know, it's caused me to just take pause myself and not be a fool, all right? And I hope that you'll take the same admonition and don't be a fool either, all right? So let's look at this. You'll notice here that the verse, it puts revealing your own mind is put in a negative light, okay? It's not put in a good way. It's called foolishness. That's what a fool does. So we don't need to always just speak our mind. We need to, next here, is we need to learn to incline to have our delight in the understanding of other people, okay? And, I mean, this is what humble people do. They listen to other people. They don't always have to be the one to interject something. And what is that? Because that's pride, all right? Why? Because you think that you are right, and you think that your ideas are better than other people's. And that's the way we don't need to live. And again, I catch myself doing this, and I don't need to be this way. And because what is that? That's pride. And pride is foolishness. And I don't want to be that way. And I don't want you guys to be that way, okay? So you need to first remember, just realize you are not all that. You are not something just super special out there, okay? God's gift to humanity. And you need to listen to other people. And this is going to put us right here with the next point is don't talk too much. Okay? It's almost just another way of saying what we just said, but there's a little more here. Just introductory here. You can't talk if you're listening. So if you're doing the previous point of listening to people, then you're not going to be talking too much, right? You can't talk if you're already listening. So this will take care of itself if you can apply point number 2 there. I read another old commentator. I didn't give the name here, but it's Kyle and Dalish. So there's some German guys, but this is a really old quote, and it's not an exact quote. I had to redo some words because some of the words you probably wouldn't understand what they mean. I had to look them up. Sorry, but anyway, I changed a couple words here. So anyway, this is the sense of what they're saying. The talkativeness of the fool proceeding from self-satisfaction without self-knowledge is being rebuked. So look at what they're saying. A fool is talking a lot. He's expressing what's in his mind. He's revealing everything that's in his mind because he thinks that those things are all important and right. And he's doing that, and that talkativeness is coming from the fact that he has a self-satisfaction about himself. He thinks he's right. He's satisfied with what he's thinking. It's right, so since it's right, I'm going to say it. And but he's doing that without self-knowledge that he is not right and that he does have deficiencies and he does have lackings and shortcomings. So a fool, he does not delight in understanding, but rather just in revealing his own mind. And so what's he doing? He is talking a lot because he has self-satisfaction about himself, but he doesn't even have true self-knowledge about himself and how wrong he is. Got one more, kind of one more thing here just to kind of think about. Are you concerned about the ideas of others, or are you only concerned in pridefully speaking your own mind? Okay, which is what the verse is saying. I got one more quote, and I'm going to bring back my good friend Al here. What does he say again? And really, this really lines up with this verse. The only thing more dangerous than ignorance is arrogance. And it kind of looks like he read Proverbs 18:2 right before he said that. Okay, a fool is arrogant. That's what this verse is saying. Fool is not delight in understanding. He thinks he's already right. He's not inclined and bent toward understanding and realizing his own deficiencies, but only in speaking his own mind. That's arrogance. So the only thing more dangerous than ignorance is arrogance. I think that's right. So super simple right here, right? You need to realize you're not all that. You need to listen to other people, other wise people. Okay, I didn't say that, but I think that goes without saying. And then number 3, you just don't need to talk too much, all right? Just because you think it doesn't mean that you have to say it, or that you have to always say it first, okay? Maybe you just need to hold your tongue and say it a little bit later. Some things to think about. And now, our bonus point, all right? I told you I was going to make some connections between verses 1 and 2, so I'm going to do that real quick, and then we're going to be done. So bonus point, prideful desire. And I think that this really kind of sums up what we've been talking about. And so hopefully this is going to sound a little bit like you already said that, because both verses have this idea intermingled with them. So let's look at verse number 1. He who separates himself seeks his own desires. And we didn't really talk too much about this, but those words, his own, okay? His own desire, what does he do? He quarrels against all sound wisdom. So again, what's he seeking? His desire, her pleasure. That's pride. Look at verse number 2. A fool does not delight in understanding, but only in revealing his own mind. So there it is again. The problem with the fool is that he is a prideful person. She is prideful. How do you think? Do you only think about your pleasures and your thoughts? That is a prideful thing. And so we've been hitting on pride a little bit, quite a bit through these, and that's really that's one of the things that ties these two verses together. These two thoughts is the fool's focused on himself. Okay, his own thoughts, his own desires. It's all about what he wants and about what he thinks, and nobody else. And then the second connection I want to draw for you, let's look at it again. He who separates himself seeks his own desire. Okay, we talked about this word. Remember, it means pleasures or a longing or a lusting. His desires, and that's all he cares about. Remember, he only cares about getting those things and making those pleasures his, getting her desires and making them hers. A fool does not delight. So there's that idea. Now again, that means to be inclined to curve, to bend. So it's not the same Hebrew word, but it is the same type of thought. Okay. The fool's desire in verse 1, his pleasures are things that he is seeking and getting. He is going after those things. And in verse 2, his delight is in revealing his own mind and saying all the things that he thinks are just great and profound, when he does not have that self-knowledge that he needs in order to speak wisely. And so prideful desire, it's all about him, it's all about what she wants, and it goes into what their desires are. Their desires are self-centered. And so if you find that your desires and pleasures are self-centered, chances are you're a fool. Chances are you are prideful. Now that doesn't, okay, let me, kind of say this about that. Obviously, if it's a pleasure for me, it's something that I enjoy. But the point is that those pleasures and those desires in me getting those things involve me stepping over people or ignoring people, separating from people. I don't care about people. I care about me. And that's the problem. That is selfishness and pride. And so a fool has prideful desires. So we don't need to be that way. Okay. So these first two verses here are not really hard to understand. And that's the thing about the Proverbs. Most Proverbs are not hard to understand. We just need to take time to understand them. And so I hope that, you come across Proverbs 18, 1 and 2 in the future, you'll at least remember, hey, let me think about these. Oh yeah, I don't need to be a fool. Okay. I need to just be careful the way I live my life. And that's the way these are. So again, I love studying the book of Proverbs, and I love studying it this way. And so I hope that this has been a blessing to you, and I hope it's just giving you a little bit of insight and some things to think about. And hope to be with you guys again in person soon. And if not, we'll just keep plowing along this way. But I appreciate you guys, and looking forward to seeing you again. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you later.